Hello homeschool moms. In this video we're going to talk about the homeschool mom comparison trap. It is real and it is dangerous. I'm going to let you know what the homeschool mom comparison trap is. We're going to talk about the 3 big dangers with the homeschool mom comparison trap, and I'm going to let you know how to avoid the homeschool mom comparison trap, which I think is the most important part of this video, so make sure to watch all the way to the end. So what is the homeschool mom comparison trap? Well, it's when we as homeschool moms compare ourselves, our kids, and our homeschools, and even our homes and our families to other homeschool families. And it traps us into fixating on the accomplishments of other homeschool families instead of focusing on the needs of our own family and what we need to accomplish and what the Lord has for our family and our homeschool. Now, there are 3 dangers that I see with the homeschool mom comparison trap. And the first one is that it breeds either guilt or pride. When we compare ourselves as homeschool moms to other homeschool moms, when we compare our kids to other homeschooled kids, when we compare what we get accomplished in any given day or week or month or year to what another family is getting accomplished, we are either overcome with guilt because we feel like we are failing, or we're overcome with pride because we think, wow, we are doing so much better than they are. Both of these are not good. They trap us into focusing on what other people are doing instead of what we need to be doing for our family. Let's talk about guilt first. Guilt just discourages us. It makes us want to give up on homeschooling when really we may be doing an excellent job. And also, guilt makes us focus on our perceived failures instead of on all the successes that we are having throughout our homeschool day and weeks and years. And notice I said perceived failures, because a lot of times I think that the failures that we think we are seeing or experiencing really aren't failures at all. They're just part of homeschooling and educating kids. And we're so focused on them that we miss all of the successes. So we don't want to be overcome with guilt. And so to do that, we need to avoid the homeschool mom comparison trap. We need to stop comparing ourselves to other homeschool moms. Now, the flip side of this is we can compare ourselves and we can be full of pride, right? We can go, wow, I thought I wasn't doing too good, but I'm looking over there at that family and oh my goodness, they never have read aloud time. They never review their math facts. Their kids are not participating in any activities at all. They don't know how to read. They're struggling with this or that or the other thing. I've got this nailed down, and we start puffing ourselves up and we're full of pride. Well, first let me say or remind you, pride is a sin, all right? And the Bible says that pride comes before a fall, and so we do not want to be puffing ourselves up and be full of pride. And when we're puffed up on pride, we often neglect the things and the areas that we actually do need to make improvements in, because let's be honest, we're all human and none of us are perfect. And so there's always room for improvement in my life, in how I parent and how I homeschool. There's always room for improvement. And so if we're comparing with other people and we're puffed up with pride, we're going to miss those opportunities that God has for us to grow us and to help us improve our homeschool in some different areas. And finally, here's what pride does. It keeps us from having compassion for other homeschool families. We start to see ourselves as better than those other homeschool families instead of acknowledging that maybe they're struggling and having compassion on them and seeing how we can help, how we maybe can provide some wisdom or encouragement to them. You know, there are seasons in my homeschooling where I really was overwhelmed with guilt and the comparison trap, but I shouldn't have been, because this was a season where I was on bed rest or I had just had a baby. We weren't getting a whole lot accomplished in our homeschool, but boy, would it have been nice for other homeschool families who were in a season where it was going really well and homeschooling was pretty easy for them to come alongside me and to encourage me, to maybe offer some practical tips or suggestions on how to manage homeschooling with a little one underfoot, or even just to provide some practical help. So when we are comparing ourselves to other homeschool moms and other homeschool families, we can be overcome with guilt, we can be puffed up with pride. And we don't want either of those things because neither of them do our family or ourselves any good. And certainly when we're puffed up with pride, we're not going to have compassion on those homeschool families who maybe really are struggling and need our encouragement and need our help. The second danger of the homeschool mom comparison trap is stress. Stress on us as homeschool moms and stress on our kids. Let's talk about the stress on our kids first. When we are comparing our kids to other homeschool kids, what are we doing? We're usually feeling like our kids are not measuring up. And so we put pressure on them. Can't you do better? Can't you be like so-and-so? Don't you know that this person over here can already read and you can't read? Or maybe we don't say those things to our kids, but we feel it. And our kids, they know how we feel and they know our frustrations and our maybe concerns about where they are academically. And a lot of times what we end up doing, or at least I have done in my homeschool journey, is when I feel like a kid is not measuring up to another kid, I'm not saying they're not, I'm not talking about where they're supposed to be as an individual child, because every child develops at their own pace, but I'm comparing them to someone else and saying they're not measuring up to that child. What do I end up doing? I end up getting more curriculum or putting in more assignments or doubling up on math lessons because, oh my goodness, we need to catch up to where that other homeschool child is. That adds stress to our kids that our kids don't need because we need to let them progress in school, in their education at their own pace. And they can't move at their own pace if we're trying to keep pace with some other kid in the homeschool community that we know. Another thing that it does for our kids in terms of adding stress is, like I said, we're adding so many extra things on. And so they're overwhelmed because they don't have time to play. They don't have time to explore their interests because they are so overwhelmed with all of the activities and co-ops and classes and curriculum that we are trying to shove on them just to keep up with all these other homeschool families. Then it adds stress to us as homeschool moms because we run ourselves ragged trying to keep up with the other homeschool mom and that homeschool family over there, right? But here's the thing we need to remember. No homeschool family is doing everything. So yes, the Joneses over there might be doing 1 hour read alouds every day, and their kids may be taking multiple music lessons and learning multiple instruments. But I'm gonna bet that they're not doing unit studies, and their kids aren't in sports class, and they're probably not doing the co-op class. And so we have to remember that nobody is doing everything, and we really need to focus on what our family needs are and what our kids need and what our goals are for our family. See, every family in every season of homeschooling and every different year of school has different goals for their kids and for their family. And so they're going to put in activities, they're going to use curriculum that's going to help them accomplish those goals. That's what we need to focus on instead is what does our family needs? What are our goals for our family? And what activities, what curriculum are going to help us reach those goals? Instead of saying, oh my goodness, the Joneses are doing read alouds and music, and over here the Smiths are in sports, and this family over here is doing these amazing science experiments, and the next thing we know, we're trying to do read alouds and music lessons and sports and science lessons on top of all these other things that we think our family needs. It adds so much stress to us. We don't need that stress, right? Our kids don't need that stress. We need to avoid the homeschool mom comparison trap. And finally, the third danger to the homeschool mom comparison trap is that it distracts us from what's really important. And what's really important is whatever the Lord has put on our hearts as parents that's important for our kids to accomplish, for the goals that we have for our family. But those are going to be different. Those are going to be different from my family from year to year, and they're going to be different from other homeschool families. And so we don't want to get distracted and get off course of what's really important for our family and for our individual children. And to do that, we need to avoid the homeschool mom comparison trap, because when we're comparing ourselves to other families, we are going to then be focused on trying to keep up with them instead of keeping our focus on what's important, which is what our family really needs. So make sure you're pursuing the goals that you have for your unique family instead of running after the goals that some other family has for their family. All of our families are unique. We're all in different seasons, and each season we have different goals, and we need to be making sure we're pursuing what's important for our family and not pursuing what's important for some other family. We've got to avoid the homeschool mom comparison trap. So how do we avoid the homeschool mom comparison trap? Well, some people would say, get your eyes off of all those other homeschool families and keep your eyes on yourself and your own homeschool family. And that's good advice to a point. But here's the thing. I don't always know what's best for me, let alone my kids. But the good news is God knows what's best for me. He knows what's best for my kids, and He knows what's best for my family. He is sovereign. He knows what my kids need and what they need to learn and what talents and skills they need to develop to do all of the amazing things that He's going to call them to do when they are grown up, or even right now as a kid. God knows what they need. And so if God knows what they need, and I don't always know what they need, I need to be keeping my eyes on the Lord first and foremost. So how do we avoid the homeschool mom comparison trap? We set our eyes on the Lord. When our eyes are on the Lord, then He will reveal to us what we need to do. He will guide and direct us into what our goals and our focus should be and what is important for our family and for our kids and for our homeschool. When our eyes are on the Lord, then we are going to be seeking His plan for our family and for our kids instead of somebody else's plan, or instead of His plan for some other family. And so we want to keep our focus on the Lord. Well, how do we keep our focus on the Lord? I want to suggest 2 ways to you, and you probably, if you've watched me enough on YouTube, you probably know what they are. Number 1, be in the Word. Number 2, prayer. If we want to know what God has for us and for our family and for our kids, we need to be in the Word. We need to be reading our Bibles, because that is God's word to us on how to live, on what's important. It's what God uses to convict us of sin and maybe areas of laziness, or helps us to expose things that maybe we need to address, not only in ourselves as homeschool moms, but in our kids. And so we need to be in the Word, not only individually as homeschool moms, but as homeschool families, and encouraging our kids to be in the Word as well. We also need to be in prayer. We need to be lifting up our worries, our fears to the Lord through prayer. We need to be asking questions, just sharing our heart with God and seeking Him through prayer as well. You guys, the homeschool mom comparison trap is not a fun trap to be in. It's not going to produce anything but bad fruit in our lives. But the answer isn't just focusing on ourselves, because we don't always know what's best for us, let alone what's best for our kids and our families, but God does. So the answer to the homeschool mom comparison trap is to set our eyes on the Lord, to be in the Word, to be in prayer, and let Him guide and direct our homeschool. Because then and only then will we know that we are having a successful homeschool, because we'll be doing what the Lord has called us to do and what He has directed and said is most important for each day, each week, each month, and each year of our homeschool. I hope this was an encouragement to you. I'd love to hear from you. Have you fallen into the homeschool mom comparison trap? Has it given you pride or guilt? Has it stressed you out? Has it kept you from focusing on what's important? Let me tell you, the answer for me is yes, 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 yes. I have fallen into this trap so many times. The answer every single time for me was to get my eyes on the Lord and let Him guide and direct my homeschool.